this Airbnb costs $500 or $600 a month. He's like, it's Thailand. You should be able to get it for $100. And I'm like, dude, that's on a fucking lease. There's no Airbnb in the world that's going to cost you $100 a month that you want to live in. And so his mentality of everything should be cheap means that his funds were running out quick. He started kicking it the first couple of days and he's like, oh shit, this isn't as cheap as I thought. Many Americans have this idea of cheap living, beaches, and endless freedom, and being worshipped for being an American, and not even just really cheap living. I can live for $1,000 a year in Africa. I'm going to debunk all of those myths and why it's not always the case when you move abroad. Make sure you like the video, subscribe. I'm Austin Holleman. Let's get into it. So a lot of people watch my Instagram or they watch my YouTube accounts and other travelers or expats, and they think that moving to another country would be an easy transition. And I can tell you, even going, if you're a U.S. citizen, naturally born U.S. citizen, and you go to any country in the world, you are guaranteed to have something that the locals don't like about you, a lot of things that you don't like about them, and many different forms of culture shock. I've been living abroad nearly for 3 years. Now I live in Nairobi, Kenya, but I've lived in Brazil as well, and Paraguay. So listen to my experiences so I can tell you exactly what you experience moving abroad. Now, the first thing is culture shock. With culture shock, that could be time, service, personal space, especially if you're going to a place like India. Even here in Africa, people seem to stand more often than not close enough to where if you had on a backpack, they would be constantly bumping into it. I don't know if you guys have been around a lot of Indians that still live in India, and maybe they carry. India is a very crowded place. So is China. So it's not uncommon for those people to stand inches, less than 6 inches from behind you, which a lot of you guys are very sensitive. A lot of you guys don't consider that people in other countries do things differently. For example, in most other countries I've been to outside of Western Europe and the United States, it is very, 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 very common for people to stare at you for extended periods of time. And it doesn't mean that they're challenging you. It doesn't mean that they have an issue with you, or it doesn't mean that they are racist and they have, they're just giving you that mean stare. In other parts of the world, some people, I don't know what it is, they're just curious, but they will, especially in Africa, they will just stare at you unapologetically. They'll just stare at you for extended periods of time. And I have friends that get offended. They're not used to people looking at them that long, but I promise you, if you have an issue with that, you will stress yourself out unnecessarily because it will not stop. Communication, another huge problem. And this is more, I'm going to focus more on Africa with this one because Latin America and Asia, it's not really an issue when it comes to communication and how direct they describe things. But if you come to an African, and Africans are like this in the United States too, they're very direct, and it can come off to an American as very offensive. But again, as I said before, there is nothing that you can do about it. African will get in your car and they won't, as Americans, we might say, let the window down, or we might not say anything, but they'll just get in your car and say like, damn, this car stinks. And like, whenever they tell the driver that, if it's another African, they don't really seem too offended by that. People are not on a very tense, ticking time bomb lifestyle like Americans are. In America, you can honk a horn and they pull over and shoot you at the red light. So completely different lifestyle. Whenever people have road rage here, they tend to just yell at each other. In America, they tend to try to kill each other or fight. It's not really as simple as it is over here. If you are used to delivery drivers telling you the truth and services being prompt and in a timely manner, when you get to Africa and Latin America and even some parts of Southeast Asia, don't expect this to be the same way, especially in Africa. I remember I was getting my washer machine delivered here, and they said, hey, we'll be there at 2 p.m. is what they sent me a text saying. Then they called me and said, hey, I'm 10 minutes down the street. I had something else to do. So I was like, oh, these 10 minutes down the street, probably going to take them 10 or 15 minutes max to plug up this washing machine. So I'll just wait here and I go do what I'm doing. So I had to meet somebody. I'm telling them like, hey, I'll be over there in about 45 minutes. Just give me like 45 minutes. Long story short, I ended up waiting at least 3 hours for them to get here. So whenever the guy got here, I asked him like, yo, like, why the hell did you tell me you were 10 minutes away? Oh, I was still at the last person's house. I said, then why did you say that you were 10 minutes away? When you say 10 minutes away, I'm thinking that you're driving to me. In America, you could get him fired for that. If you try to call the corporate office or that store and say, hey, your delivery driver is kind of bullshitting, yeah, they probably just hang up in your face, or they'll just, they don't really care. Another thing that I've said before about a lot of other countries around the world, time, which is kind of related to the last story I just told you, does not exist in a lot of these countries. If somebody in Africa tells you, you have to lie to Africans to get them to show up on time. And sometimes they're still late. Like if you tell them, hey, at 3 p.m., my party starts, guaranteed they're showing up at 7 p.m. Sometimes I'll lie and I'll say, hey, come at 12. And it doesn't start till 3. Somehow they still show up at 4 o'clock. I'm like, damn, I need to start lying 24 hours in advance. The best way to combat this is to accept it, be flexible, and be patient, and realize that you as one person cannot change the culture. The second thing is infrastructure problems, something that you will more than likely deal with the most in Africa, or if you're in a very poor nation in Southeast Asia, or if in South America, if it's Bolivia, maybe you'll experience this. But infrastructure problems such as slow internet, consistent power outages. For example, this apartment that I'm living in right now, I moved here in November, and literally that first month, my electricity would go out every other day for 2 and 3 hours at a time. One time, it literally went out for 17 and a half hours. Now, thank God that doesn't happen anymore. Now the electricity is usually on about 3 weeks straight at a time without any interruptions. And then for some reason around a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it goes out for 3 hours at a time, but that's doable. 17 and a half hours is like, yeah, your stuff in the refrigerator can go bad at that point. Now, it gets worse in other African countries. I experienced it in Mozambique. If you live in Nigeria, I heard it's very common there. I experienced it in Ghana. In Latin America, this is not really an issue that I ever really experienced was a power. I think a power outage across the 8 countries I went to in the year that I lived there. I think I only experienced 1 power outages across 8 countries when I lived in Latin America. I didn't experience any water outages. Water outages are very common in Africa. Luckily in this building, that hasn't been an issue for me. And the last thing is internet. Now, in a place like Nairobi, the internet is very, very fast. They have 5G internet. I can upload 4K videos in 10 minutes, depending on where I'm at, or depending on what service provider I have. But this is not always the case. When I was in Maputo, Mozambique, the internet was super slow. When I was in Tanzania, the internet was super slow. When I was in Zambia, Rwanda, Uganda, now those places have fast internet, so you're going to do your research on which country has the infrastructure that you're looking for that you can tolerate, because none of this is going to be perfect. Like Nairobi is a great city, but I literally back in December fell into a pothole waist deep and got a cut so deep it got infected. I fell into a damn sewage, and I had antibiotics, and I had to get on antibiotics, and I could barely walk for a couple of days. But this is still a great city, but for African references, this is one of the better cities you could live in, but it still has a ways to go. If you would like to talk to somebody like myself that has been all around the world, lived in many different places, and can tell you exactly what place you're looking for, whether if it's investment, living standards, culture, click the link in the first pinned comment in the description and book a consultation. Luckily, besides me falling in a pothole, I do not have too much experience with serious medical injuries like needing surgery or anything like that. But a lot of people's concerns is healthcare better? I remember I had a friend that was in Brazil with me, and he literally claimed that there were no real doctors in Brazil and that he needed to fly back to the United States to see a real doctor. Typical American shit, right? I mean, like they just have no equipment. The United States is one of the highest leading countries for leaving utensils inside of somebody's body and getting people hooked on pharmaceutical drugs just to make money. Those are the real doctors. Anyway, if you're in a place like Nairobi, you are in one of the best cities for medical care in Africa. And even a place like Colombia is known for medical tourism and great healthcare. Now, there is a downside to the medical industry in most of these second and third world countries, which is, for example, the ambulance. It is not uncommon to see a damn fire truck or an ambulance in Africa or in Latin America sitting in traffic with their sirens on, meaning that somebody is literally in the ambulance having a heart attack, or somebody is having a house fire and the people are not even going to let the emergency services through the way. Now, they'll let the police go through, but the ambulance and all that, no. Police and military, no problem, because they know that they're armed, that pretty much they ain't gonna be able to get away with that. I remember one time I was in Lima, Peru, and I was walking down the coastline of the beach, not the part where there's the rocks, but the part where there's the sand. There was an ambulance that was stuck in traffic and literally standstill traffic, or it was barely moving like maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour. And I was outpacing the ambulance. In the United States, you would get put in jail if you blocked an ambulance like that. That's a serious crime to do that. But always have private insurance if you are moving to a new country. Now, the next thing is emotional isolation, missing friends, family, American conveniences, language barriers. Now, the last two things I can live without. I really don't care about it. I can speak other languages, but it is better to be in an English-speaking country. But that can just seriously be learned, and you'll be able to communicate just fine with everybody else. As far as American conveniences go, I don't really have an issue with that because there's usually services like, for example, they have a house lady that comes in here, not in my place. Other people have a house lady that will come in, cook, clean, do everything for the house, and it only costs like $200 a month. They'll even go to the grocery store for you. So you can get the same things delivered, do all that kind of stuff that you could do in America in another country. Holidays do feel lonelier. I don't celebrate Christmas anymore for the most part, or Thanksgiving, or really anything besides my birthday. And hell, I barely celebrate that. But I do always feel like an outsider, especially when I went back to the United States. Something had really changed about me being abroad for 2 years where there was a disconnect with everybody I had known my entire life. It was just something disconnected. I mean, of course, not everybody. My parents, yes, but there was a lot more silence because my mind was somewhere else. My mind was still in Brazil or Nairobi while I was supposed to be spending time with my family. And this is why having a support network of expats and locals is important no matter where you go. And this is another reason I love living in Nairobi, because you can make many local friends, and there's a very large number of American expats that live here. If you book a consultation, I'll add you to my expat group that is in Nairobi. Now, here's one of the biggest things that people assume, that life will be just extremely cheap and they run out of money. For example, I knew a guy that was in Thailand. I was already in Thailand and he flew out there to meet me and hang out for a couple weeks. Great place to hang out with other Americans in another country. But he went over there to meet me, and I was like, yeah, this Airbnb costs $500 or $600 a month. He's like, it's Thailand. You should be able to get it for $100. And I'm like, dude, that's on a fucking lease. There's no Airbnb in the world that's going to cost you $100 a month that you want to live in. And so his mentality of everything should be cheap means that his funds were running out quick. He started kicking it the first couple of days, and he's like, oh shit, this isn't as cheap as I thought. I keep telling you guys, for most countries you go to around the world, survival costs are around $2,000 a month. That means that's how much it costs for you to survive. You don't have any money to kick it after that. That's just survival costs. If you want to live a lifestyle of hanging out 3-4 times a week, going on dates, having friends that you're going to the pool alley and, bowling alley with, or pool hall and bowling alley, it's going to cost you around $4,000 to do that. So if you have not figured that part out, start there. You're not ready to go to another country if you don't have that figured out. What a lot of people don't think about is, I dropped my iPhone, so it's broken now. Yeah, if you're in Kenya, that iPhone's if it costs $1,000 in the States, it's like damn near $2,500 here. In Brazil, it's going to be like $3,000 there. If you're not living in Thailand or the Philippines or anywhere besides those countries I just named, and maybe South Africa, the electronics are taxed super high. And I have no clue why the governments do this. I was told that it's to inspire people to make their own devices. But when is the next time Ghana's going to create a new iPhone? Always keep a budget and always have an emergency fund. So if you're looking to move out of the United States, realize that it's not literally just you moving, but you have to literally restructure your mentality to be able to adapt to other nations around the world. If you are patient and you can accomplish these things that I told you today, the rewards will be high. You can live for a fifth of the cost in most places that compared to what it would cost you to live in Texas or New York. You'll be able to live next to the beach if you want to, or in a landlocked major city like Nairobi if you want to. You'll be able to live in the type of weather that you want to, and you'll be able to be around happier people. If you guys would like to see more of my personal vlogs in life, click the Patreon, sign up below, and also leave a comment on what you thought in the video and what you want to see next.